and welcome into this week's edition of The Pole Position right here on Racing News Now. As always, I'm your host, Garth Allen. Thank you once again for joining me today. If this is your first time catching a Racing News Now video, consider going down below and hitting that subscribe button and ringing the bell for notifications so you don't miss a thing going forward from Racing News Now. This is a channel where we discuss lots of motorsports, namely NASCAR, ARCA, IndyCar, and Formula One. And on tonight's edition of The Pole Position, we've got most of that for you. No F1 this week, but we do have all three National Series of NASCAR in action from Kentucky. ARCA was at Elko Speedway in Elko, Minnesota, and IndyCar was in Toronto, on the streets of Toronto. So we will get right into that, and we'll start off with the Kentucky stuff, as that kicked off the weekend, actually a little before the weekend, as the trucks were on Thursday night for the Buckle Up in Your Truck 225. I love that. That is a fun name to say. Ben Rhodes picks up his second career Truck Series victory, first of the season, beating out Stuart Friesen in this one, who has come oh so close so many times already this season. But we're going to dirt this week, so I think Stuart Friesen might have the upper hand for this week. And next week on Pole Position, we might be talking about Stuart Friesen with his first career Truck Series victory. Matt Crafton coming home in the third position with Brandon Jones and John Hunter Nemechek rounding out the top five. Rest of your top 10 were Grant Enfinger, Todd Gilliland, Noah Gragson, Dalton Sargent, and your Gateway winner, Justin Haley. Alright, so we will continue with the Kentucky theme and move to Friday night for the Alsco 300 for the NASCAR Xfinity Series. Christopher Bell was your winner from this one, beating out the likes of one Mr. Kyle Busch, who everyone says is unbeatable in the Xfinity Series. And as we saw on Friday night, not always the case. Daniel Hemrick also beating out Kyle Busch there in the second position. Busch came home in third with Justin Allgaier and Cole Custer rounding out the top five. The rest of your top 10 were Tyler Reddick, John Hunter Nemechek, Ryan Reed, Paul Menard, and Austin Cindric in the 12 car this week for Team Penske. And we will wrap up the festivities from Kentucky this weekend with the Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series event, which happened Saturday night. The Quaker State 400 presented by Walmart. Martin Truex Jr. absolutely dominating this one, leading 174 of the 267 laps on his way to his fourth victory of the season, 19th of his career. Team Penske teammates Ryan Blaney and Brad Keselowski coming home second and third, with the other two of the big three this season, Kyle Busch and Kevin Harvick, rounding out the top five. Kurt Busch there in sixth. Your Daytona winner, Eric Jones, following up his first career victory there with a strong top 10 run in seventh. Eric Almirola, Kyle Larson, who had to fight his way to the front from the back after missing driver intros at the beginning of the race, of all things to miss. And the third Penske car, Joey Logano, slotting in the 10th position from Kentucky. Alright, so that wraps up the NASCAR action from the weekend. If you want more in-depth recaps of any of that, you will want to check out the Rewind shows. We have one for each of those particular races, and we go much more in depth with those highlights, results, interviews, point standings, anything you could possibly want, you name it, we probably have it in the Rewind shows. So go check those out. They're linked down in the description. Now let's move on to the ARCA Racing Series, the Sioux Chief Power PEX 250 from the Elko Speedway. That was also on Saturday night. Got started there with about 30 laps to go, 20-30 laps to go in the Cup race. About 10 p.m. Eastern, a very late start for this one. But it was some exciting Saturday night short track racing. Lots of beating and banging, lots of comers and goers, lots of guys that were fast that were not there at the end of the race. Gus Dean ends up picking up the victory in this one, his second career ARCA victory, first of the 2018 season. Very, very odd pit strategy that actually got him the win in this one. Stayed out at one point early to save a set of tires. fell back in the pack, ended up 2 laps down at one point, spins out with about 100 laps to go in turn 3, and somehow fights his way back with that extra set of tires. So he had fresh tires at the end when nobody else did besides Joe Graf Jr. Joe Graf Jr. also on the same strategy. Both fought their way back to the front, and Gus Dean picks up his first win of the season, second career victory. Christian Eckes up front all night, not quite win material. I don't think he was there, but just didn't quite have the fastest car all night. Second place for him. Joe Graf Jr., the other guy we mentioned on that strategy, comes home in the third position. Riley Herbst in fourth, and Natalie Decker picks up her second top 5 of the season in fifth. First week with her new crew chief, Frank Kimmel, so obviously that seems to be paying dividends for her. Chandler Smith was fast early on and ends up spinning out late after contact with Chase Purdy, rebounds to 6th. Travis Braden, Blaine Perkins, Eddie Fasher, and Robert Bruce were the rest of your top 10. Alright, so that was ARCA from Elko. That one also, if you want a rewind show of that, if you want more in-depth look at that, we have that as well. It is not up yet, as we were waiting on updated points, as well as our interview with winner Gus Dean. That happened actually about 15 minutes before this show goes live, so it will be up, should be pretty shortly here, probably within the next hour or so after this goes live. We should have the ARCA Rewind show up as well, so you want to check that out for a more in-depth look at that, as well as an exclusive interview with winner Gus Dean. Alright, so we'll move on to the final race of the weekend. IndyCar from Toronto, that being the Honda Indy Toronto. Scott Dixon picks up yet another win and extends his points lead in Toronto. Simon Pagenaud comes home in the second position. Canadians Robert Wickens and James Hinchcliffe, third and fourth. And Charlie Kimball rounds out the top 5. Rest of your top 10, Tony Kanaan, Zach Veach, Alexander Rossi, Joseph Newgarden, and Marco Andretti. Alright, so that's your results from the Honda Indy Toronto, and that will do it for us tonight on Pole Position. Like I said, you want to stick around here in a little bit for the ARCA Rewind show, as that will go up here pretty soon after this goes up. I would imagine not more than an hour, hour and a half after this goes up, we'll have that ARCA Rewind show up, so you want to keep an eye out for that. If you hit the subscribe button, if you haven't already, and ring that bell, then you will know exactly when it comes out, and you'll get to catch up on everything that happened in Elko, as well as hear it straight from Gus Dean, what he thought about that race and his win. So you definitely want to do that. And hit that big thumbs up button on this video if you enjoyed it. It is much appreciated when you do. So with that, this has been the Pole Position, where you always start on the front row. I'm Garth Allen for Racing News Now.